Welcome, everybody, to the Cutting Room Floor, a podcast of Grace Church. My name is Wes. I'm joined here by Larry. We're two of the pastors at Grace Church, and it's our joy to be with you during this time. We've begun a brand new series of messages called Handoff, and it's about how to navigate change and transitions in life. We're actually using some Old Testament prophets as our subject matter and character studies for this. Two men by the name of Elijah and his understudy Elisha.
And we're trying to keep those names straight.
We had a little meeting about how to do that this morning, and it's going to get a little more complex in the weeks to come. But first thing I want to say, Larry, is just how grateful I am that you moved here to Florida, because of many, many things I could talk about. But one brand new thing that you have brought to us is I am now a baseball fan.
I don't know if I believe you quite there, but I talk about it a lot.
It started last night, actually, while you were maybe even asleep, because my alma mater, the University of Kentucky, is for the first time ever in the College World Series of baseball.
First time ever.
And so I'm going to become a baseball fan.
Okay.
I just decided last night about midnight.
All right. Welcome to the club.
And so ever since you moved here, we've been in the World Series. It's pretty incredible.
I know. It's a great thing I moved.
Now, your baseball career, which was a lot longer than mine, was something that was really formative in your life. Tell us about that and how that taught you a little bit about handoffs and transitions.
Yeah, so I played baseball my whole life. I mean, up through going into college. There wasn't a summer or spring or fall league that I wasn't a part of. And there was so much I learned, not just about the game, but like being on different travel teams and stuff like that. Like you're embracing different groups of people and trying to become part of that team. And then you'd go from summer ball into fall ball at school, which is a whole different thing with different rules and different coach. And so it was always just this seasons changing with baseball, and then all the work you put in the off season. And
Yeah. So this was a year-round thing for you.
Always.
Okay. No wonder it was so formative. No wonder you're such a big fan, even though the Cubs are not doing as well as, say, the University of Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah. I mean, right now I think UK could probably beat the Cubs.
Oh, my goodness.
It's pretty bad. But, I'm still kind of all year round now as a fan. Like I'm always watching. I know how long till spring training starts, and it's one of the things that I've loved about moving to Florida is having access to spring training games. That's something I've never had because it's always freezing in Illinois, and like I'd always go on opening day and freeze to death sitting at Wrigley Field. Like I went to several spring training games at the two stadiums here, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Great time.
The problem here is it gets a little warm.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, at least you won't freeze to death.
That's right.
So you use this experience of baseball to help us step into the story of this amazing prophet who was a pretty headline-grabbing guy named Elijah. And, the first set of verses that we were looking at really had to do with him. And then we'll get into his understudy and the handoff that came a little bit later to Elisha. But tell us a little bit about that story and about what you have learned about him in preparing for this message.
Yeah, so Elijah's this larger-than-life figure in the Scriptures, mentioned a lot in the New Testament as well, and comes onto the scene at a time where Israel is just falling into this spiritual decay, like rot has set in their lives because they're not worshiping the Lord, the God of Israel, anymore. They've gone and followed after this false god Baal, and that's because their civil leaders, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, have led them in that. They're going that way, and Elijah's called to stand up in the face of all of that. Which I said yesterday, just what a terrible job to be asked to do. Like everything's falling apart, Elijah. There's this drought in the land because the people have turned away from me. Queen Jezebel is rounding up prophets and having them killed, and you're going to go confront them.
Right.
Like,
and
no
they're going
thanks.
to end up in the World Series showdown of the prophets of Baal versus the one prophet of God. We'll get into that story in just a minute. But you were telling us that the worship of the god of Baal, which is a false god, little g, was something that was impacting the whole culture, and it even impacted the then king and his wife Jezebel. So paint the spiritual picture of the times.
Yeah, so Baal is is described as this god of fertility and fire and rain, which is ironic since there's no rain falling at all in the land. That should have told him something. But the biggest thing that set in is they neglected the altar of the Lord. So God's altar falls into disrepair, and they're building all these altars to Baal, which is interesting that they're following this way when there's nothing going well for the people. I mean, the king and queen are doing what they want, when they want, to who they want, but they're kind of following mindlessly behind, and it's plunged the whole nation into chaos. And God says there's going to be this drought because you've turned away from me, and then in forecasting into the future that the kingdom's going to be divided, you're going to be carried off into exile, like all sorts of bad things are going to happen. Yeah, and they just kind of keep going. So it's just spiraling out of control.
And the worship of Baal, I guess they were exchanging short-term pleasure for the long-term gain, because there was, lots of practices that would lead to immediate gratification, let's just say, in the worship of Baal, trying to be sensitive for whoever might be in the car right now listening to this podcast. But this corruption was overtaking the whole nation, and yet, as you said, Elijah was called by God, and it was a kind of a rough assignment for him, but really it's good news for the people of God that God would still speak and still send somebody to speak the good words that lead to life in the midst of all that despair.
Yeah, to the point that when, right before the story with the 450 versus Elijah, when Elijah first kind of shows back up, Ahab calls him the troubler of Israel. Like he knows you're the one that's standing against everything my wife and I are leading the people in, and is trying to blame everything on Elijah.
Yeah, and this is the king and his wife. So, he had some enemies in high places, this prophet Elijah. So take us to the big showdown that happens.
Yeah, like I said, it's my favorite Old Testament story. And so Elijah's idea is to have this contest between himself and the 450 prophets of Baal, with all of the nation of Israel standing there watching. Okay. So they build an altar, they each take a sacrifice, and whoever's God answers with fire and consumes the sacrifice, that's the God that should be worshipped. And there's just this incredible scene, and I didn't have time to get into all the scripture around it, where the prophets of Baal are jumping up and down and screaming for Baal. They're cutting themselves. They're doing all sorts of things, and there's just nothing happens. And Elijah has this moment where he starts heckling them, and it's one of my favorite parts of the story. He's like, "Where's your God? Is he taking a nap? Is he relieving himself? Maybe you should yell louder. Maybe he'll hear you then." Like,
so he's taunting them from the dugout, right in the middle of the game.
Yeah, he's catcalling them, and it's they're just trying all the more harder, and nothing happens. Wow. And like I said in the sermon, Baal's the god of fire, but he had no fire when it mattered. Yeah. Because nothing happened. So finally, it's Elijah's turn, and he does this audacious thing. He has people bring water, which is also interesting because they're in the middle of a drought. Right. That's probably a whole rabbit trail in itself. That could be an act of
worship right there. To take the little water they have, and
so they dig a trench around the altar. And the first thing Elijah does is he repairs the altar of the Lord, which I think is an easy thing to read right past there. He repairs the altar of the Lord while everybody's watching. Then they dig a trench, he prepares the sacrifice, and they completely soak it in water, fill up this trench with water. And he doesn't do any theatrics. There's no jumping up and down, there's no screaming. Okay. He just calls upon the name of the Lord, and fire falls from heaven and consumes not only the sacrifice and the wood, but the stones of the altar, and licks up all the water out of the trench. And it's just this, like, he hit the walk-off home run.
Yeah, but before, when he came up to bat, he points where he's going to hit it, right?
Yeah, it's Babe Ruth's called shot. He's like, this is what's going to happen. And all the people see it. They go crazy. They're screaming out, the Lord, he is God. And Elijah just runs with it at that point. He takes the opportunity to, dispatch with the prophets of Baal, again, being sensitive to those who are listening, right? Who may be listening in the car. So they're gone. And then he just prays a really simple prayer for rain.
Yeah.
And there's this beautiful exchange of looking for rain. I don't see it. I'm looking for rain. I see a cloud the size of a man's fist, it says.
Wow.
And that was just enough to get excited about. And here comes the rain.
Yeah.
And it should be this mountaintop. Yeah, I just hit the walk-off home run in Game 7 of the World Series. Like this unbelievable moment. When the Cubs won the World Series, David Ross was a retiring catcher. So it's his swan song.
Okay.
And he comes in the middle of Game 7 against the Indians, and he hits a home run. And they cut to him in the dugout, and he's just sitting there in disbelief. And somebody says, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I just went deep in Game 7 of the World Series."
Wow.
That had to have been what it felt like for Elijah.
Yeah.
Like, he had this confidence, but I just did it.
His lifelong dream.
Yes, I went deep, and I destroyed the prophets of Baal.
Yeah. And I think you helping us understand just how big of a moment that is helps us to appreciate what's coming next, because he was literally kind of on top of the world. I mean, he's on top of this mountain. He's been seen as this amazing hero representing the one true Lord, Yahweh, and who is victorious and faithful to his people and brings the rain, which is life for them. And then tell us what happens next, because before he can get to the victory parade, a new development takes place.
Like he has one small victory lap. He runs out in front of Ahab, waiting for the rain to come. So he has this short little sprint of victory, and then Ahab goes home and tells on him to his wife.
Yeah.
Can you believe what Elijah did? And explains the whole thing. And she is unwavering in her devotion to Baal.
Yeah.
And she's furious at Elijah. So she sends a messenger to let him know that she wants the gods to strike her dead if she doesn't kill Elijah by this time tomorrow.
Okay.
So you go from way up here on the mountaintop to, oh no.
Yeah. And you would think, I mean, just coming into the story, I would have expected him to be like, well, no big deal. I mean, the queen is threatening me, but I just, did this big showdown. I had this major victory in life. I can do anything. The Lord will give me favor. I don't have anything to worry about. But that's not how he reacts.
No, because he thought he was at the finish line.
Oh, okay.
He thought this is it. Now I can retire. I can, and no, it's still going to go on.
Yeah.
It's still going to go on. So it may not seem as huge of a threat, but she is the queen. Yes, 450 have been taken out, but she still has this incredible power in the land. So I'm not at the finish line. Maybe that was just, the second lap of the race.
Yeah, or maybe it's like they thought it was just a 1-game series, and you come to find out, no, this is a 7-game series.
7. So that's a good way to put it. Like, okay, we're not as done with this as I thought we were.
Yeah.
And that's an unbearable thought for Elijah.
I don't know if you're ready to go there yet, but this is how you applied it to some of our situations. Now we understand the context, and with that, we can begin to understand what it means to our lives, because we understand what it meant to them then. It also means the same thing now.
Yeah.
So when we think we've arrived at the finish line, there's a danger there for some of us. Talk to us about how you're relating this to just daily life for us here in Southwest Florida or wherever you're tuning in.
Yeah, well, it's it could be as simple as the bridge. That seems to be the thing we keep going to. They said that they were just going to go down to one lane on the bridge, and I just adjusted to that reality. Okay, I can live with this until they get it done. And then they said, oh, no, we're going to close the entire bridge for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ballgame. It's an inconvenience in the same way that going down to one lane was, but it's a whole different disruption to people's lives and commutes. And, okay, now we got to keep dealing with this for 10 weeks. So that's a really simple, softball answer to that. But,
And I'll have an update on the bridge closure this coming Sunday, actually.
I'm so glad that keeps coming back up in all of our stuff.
August 11th is our target date, but I won't say any more now. But this does relate in more serious matters than just traffic. Like one of the examples you used was when the cancer returns.
Yeah.
Or you gave us some real life examples also of just when we think we've hit the finish line and then reality runs into us again. Tell us some more about those. Well, that you had to cut.
When you said cancer, it makes me think of my grandpa. When I was heading into kindergarten, he had colon cancer, and like a champ, walked through chemo and all that, and just went on with life. Like, okay, we've done this. And then a few years ago, we found out the cancer was back. So all those good years kind of crumbled away in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, we got to do this again. And it's been this constant back and forth now. He's 80 years old, and at this point, I think he may outlive the cancer, but it's been this back and forth of, okay, here we go again. The numbers are up again. He's having symptoms in this way when we thought we were done with it.
Yeah. We had a similar journey with my own father in that he had lymphoma, and then he was diagnosed with colon cancer. And it's like, wait a second, you already have cancer. Don't you get a pass from any other cancer?
Right.
But he ended up with two. And that moment of just, letting that settle was so deflating because we had done literally victory laps. We had a family cruise to celebrate his 5 years of being cancer-free, and then this return. So this happens to us a lot in life, not even just with illness, but other things. You've talked about taking your daughter home, which cracked me up.
No, it didn't feel great in the moment. Like, there's this real high that comes from being a new parent. Like, when Marky, our oldest, was born, like, it was like the coolest 24 hours ever. Like, I was posting all the stuff on social media. Family are coming to visit. I'm like, I'm a dad now. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I made it more of a joke yesterday, but I lost it when they came in and said, okay, we're gonna send you home this afternoon. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And as soon as the doctor shut the door, I looked at Brittany and I started weeping. Wow. And she's like, what's the matter with you? I said, we have to keep her alive.
Yeah.
And I remember like that. It felt like I was up here with it, and then all of a sudden I'm way down now. Like, we got home, and we hadn't been there very long, and Brittany's like, well, I'm going to go take a shower. Yeah. Marky made a weird noise when she was in the shower, and I'm like, you got to get out here right now. Like, something's wrong with her. And there's those real challenges to parenting, even from moment one.
Yeah.
Not to mention as they grow older and you keep thinking, man, am I failing at this thing? Am I messing them up? There's this roller coaster ride to being a parent.
Yeah, it is. And so even the blessings in life can sometimes come with this shock. Going back to the experience that Elijah had, he ends up in a bad way with this news. Because Jezebel sends the message that she's got it out for him. He's on the most wanted list, and she's got a bounty on his head probably. And tell us what happens to him next, because he didn't just weep. He falls into a real deep, dark place of despair.
He kind of runs out to the outer rim and hides. And when he gets there, he sits down under this tree and just says, Lord, let me die.
Yeah.
And it's just such a low moment for him from the triumph of on the mountaintop and all the other miraculous things that God had used him to do. Now, all of a sudden, just let me die. I'm no better than my ancestors, which a lot of the commentaries say is him saying, like, they also tried to get rid of this idol worship in the land, and they failed, and now I've failed too. So they've died, now let me die too, because I'm a failure.
Wow.
And I think that resonates with people, though. Like, sometimes we hit a wall where we just sit there and go, this is too much.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And that's the moment Elijah's at. He's solely focused on the circumstance at hand. He's kind of forgotten in that moment everything that God used him for in the past.
Yeah.
Most recently, ending the drought and defeating the prophets of Baal.
Right.
But in this moment, he's going, this is too much. I can't do this. He's hit a wall where the weight of what's happening in that moment feels like too much to bear.
Yeah. And the goodness of God in that scene is amazing, because he doesn't shame him. He doesn't take away his cloak that represents his status as a prophet of the Most High God. There's a lot of compassion there.
Yeah.
That God seems to know us better than we know ourselves, that sometimes in life we do hit these walls. I shared with you that we were taught that you can describe them as the letters HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, HALT. If you're one of those four things, then it can be trouble when it comes to your emotional world. And so he is many of those things. And tell us how the Lord cares for him.
Yeah, so the first piece is as Elijah lays there and goes to sleep, hoping that he won't wake up. I mean, that's the implication of what he just said. An angel wakes him up and says, get up and eat. And the Lord has miraculously provided bread and water for him. And I joked yesterday, and somebody even found a meme and showed me that sometimes all we need is a nap and a snack.
Yeah.
And so God's given him that. He falls back asleep. Angel wakes him up again and says, no, you need to eat some more. I love that. More snacks.
Yeah.
More snacks. Yeah. Or the journey ahead will be too much for you.
Yeah.
And he eats, and he gets up and he travels to the mountain of God, 40 days and 40 nights. So it was a heck of a snack.
Yeah.
It gave him strength to go all the way there. And so God provided for that immediate need of the nap and the snack. And then as he moves to the mountain of God, God's going to provide for his inner needs. When he gets there to the mountain of God, God really starts dealing with him there.
Yeah. Some, our learnings around emotionally healthy spirituality is to pay attention to those emotions, but don't let them begin to be the Lord of our life. Because in any given day, we've talked together, we can journey from a lot of different emotions of highs and lows. And here we have one of the heroes of the Bible doing the same thing. And, before he throws in the towel, he needs some sleep, and he needs some nourishment. He needs some water and a snack. And that empowers him to take the next journey, and then there God does the deeper inner work that needed to happen. Tell us what happens next.
So he gets there, and God asks him this kind of strange question. What are you doing here, Elijah? Well, I'm here because you told me to be here. I what are you doing here? And Elijah has this real moment of honesty of what he's feeling, rightly or wrongly. I have zealously served you. I've done everything you've asked me to do, but your people have continued to turn their back on you. They've torn down your altars. They've killed your prophets. I'm the only one left. And it's too much for me.
Yeah. Why do you think, we talked about that question repeats, right?
Yes.
Why do you think God asking that question if God knows everything?
Yeah, I think it's a locator question. It's for Elijah to start to do the inner work. When we talk about the wall, the journey through the wall, like he has to understand what's going on with himself, because God does ask him that same question again, and Elijah gives the exact same answer.
Oh, okay.
And he's really got a case of terminal uniqueness. And we talk about a lot the danger of that in our emotional maturity, thinking, oh, woe is me. No one else has ever been in this situation that I'm in before.
Okay.
When that's just not possibly true with how many billions of people on this planet. Like somebody has been through something similar to what you've been through, and you're not unique. His uniqueness comes in saying, I'm the only one left.
Okay.
When right before the showdown with the prophets of Baal, we learned that Obadiah is hiding prophets in a cave to keep them away from Jezebel. So we know that there's a gathering of prophets that are being saved and rescued, and Elijah knows this. But in that moment, I'm the only one left. This bad thing's happening to me.
You think he's telling himself a story that's just not true because of in his own misery or something?
Yeah, it's what he's feeling, being completely focused on the circumstance in front of him, and kind of forgetting about all that God has brought him through in the past. In that moment, this just feels too much despair, and I don't want to hit him too hard. In that, because we've all had those moments.
That's true.
But the quicker we recognize those things, the better we are to move through them and find new trust in God. We've all had moments of terminal uniqueness, but I think I point that out to share that we've all been there, and Elijah's been there. Okay. So in those moments that we think that nothing like this has ever happened to anybody else ever. Yeah, it has, but Elijah felt that way too.
Yeah.
And God continues to meet him in the midst of that. At no point does God say, come on, man. Yeah. Like, you're not the only one left.
Okay.
God just continues to show his glory, and then to show Elijah what his new task is going to be and how God's going to continue to use him. Yeah,
what is the truth that God reveals to him, and how do you think that maybe gently and kindly draws him out of that sense of terminal uniqueness?
Yeah, I think it's in the teaching around the wind and the earthquake and the fire, because he knows that God's presence is supposed to be there. It says the Lord's going to pass by. And in all those dramatic things, he doesn't hear anything from God in that, which could probably draw him into even deeper despair. Like,
kind of surprised it didn't, right?
Yeah, oh man, now I'm not even hearing God.
Yeah.
But then after all that's over, he hears a gentle whisper, or what a lot of us grew up hearing, the still small voice.
Yeah.
And it's just this inner this inner working, this inner witness of God's Spirit with his that, okay, now I'm in the presence of God. And that's when it says he goes out to the mouth of the cave and he covers his face in his cloak. And that's a sign of humility and admitting I'm in the presence of the holy God right now. So now he's starting to get, like, God can do whatever he wants. And it can be these big, huge mountaintop moments, like defeating the prophets of Baal, or it can be in the gentle whisper.
Yeah.
And right now, God's speaking to me in the gentle whisper, and maybe I need to be more focused on the big picture and not just what's immediately in front of me.
Isn't it interesting how God speaks to this really public figure who's into almost grandiose ministry? I mean, he goes big or goes home, right? I mean, he's taken on the leaders of the nation. He's taken on the false god of the nation. He's doing it with hundreds of prophets, with thousands of people watching, and goes to look for God in the spectacular, and God speaks to him in the whisper. Isn't it amazing?
That's just like God, I guess.
I guess so. It's so counterintuitive, though.
Yeah, but I think that's what Elijah needed to see that God's ways, God's plan that we're invited to be a part of, that he was being invited to be a part of, it was better than his expectations. Because I'm sure when the wind came, he's like, okay, this is it.
This has got to be it.
This is it. And then it wasn't there. Now there's an earthquake. Okay, this is it. This is the moment.
Yeah.
No. Now, a big fire. We just saw fire.
You know Elijah, that'd be his jam,
yeah,
right?
okay. Now we've got it. And God's not there.
Right.
And now I'm going to speak to you in a gentle whisper. Okay, this is new.
Completely unexpected.
Unexpected, new, and points to that Elijah's now going to be used in less dramatic, more subtle ways, but still a huge part of what God's doing.
Right. And his legacy continues. 29 mentions of him in the New Testament alone. So his ripple effects of his ministry are huge, and yet in that moment he needs that still small voice. Sometimes I think we might need the same in our lives, and we can sometimes go looking. And I was thinking about times that I've been looking for God, and I'll read my Bible, I'll pray, I'll listen to worship music, and I'm like, where are you, Lord? I'm still not finding your presence. And I go outside and see a bird, and I'm like, oh, okay, there you are, Lord.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it just depends on the season we're in, how God wants to speak to us. We've both been to the New Room Conference before, and it's this incredible time of worship, praying for awakening in the church. And I went last fall in Texas, and everybody else seemed to be having this massive encounter with God. Like the music was great, the preaching's on, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
But the church we were at had this little chapel down at the end of a hallway, and it was just this one room thing. It kind of looked like an old school Orthodox chapel, and I kept finding myself drawn in there. So there's 1,000 people in the room, like crying out to God, and I'm in a room by myself, and I'm going, this is the best conference I've been to, because it's what I needed in that time.
Yeah, and out of God's goodness, don't you think He just meets us as we are? You know? If and maybe that's what you needed that day. You speaking of New Room and the influence of our home seminary, Asbury Theological Seminary, and the Wesleyan influence on both of our lives, you had a time that you got to spend some time with one of your mentors, Maxie Dunham, who is the president of Asbury Seminary and has also published, dozens and dozens of books, founded the Emmaus Movement, all these things.
I don't know if he has an unpublished thought.
I don't know, but they're good.
Yeah.
And, we just watched a couple minutes and people got to hear his voice, but I really think we got a glimpse into his heart. And so tell us a little bit about Maxie.
Yeah, so Maxie is... like I said, he's kind of the Babe Ruth, to stick with the baseball motif. If you go all the way back over this lifelong of career in ministry, Maxie's kind of been there, done that, and has led well, continues to lead well. He'll be 90 years old in August.
Okay.
And started to have this sense, even as he was working for a better church, advance the kingdom in a new way, partner with God, that it was time for him to start pouring into others.
Yeah.
And he'd done that intuitively as the president of a seminary, but since to do that in a more personal way. So after the conversation in Chicago that I talked about in the message, where he expressed how joyful he was to be able to hand this whole thing off one day. I got the opportunity to be mentored monthly by Maxie for a year.
That's incredible.
And those were some of the best meetings of mine. And I've had great mentors, and I'm grateful for all of them. Maxie just was so intentional about sharing himself in a way that wasn't, hey, you got to do things exactly the way that I did them.
Okay.
Because he recognized that when he was, going toe to toe with folks in Mississippi during the civil rights movement, that we were going to face different issues in our generation. But he just wanted to pour that spirit into us. So when I sat down and had that Zoom meeting with him, like you said, there was only like 2.5 minutes of that made in the message, but we talked for over an hour, and I will keep that recording.
Sure.
Like that was so good for my soul, just to be reminded that I stand on the shoulders of some giants, but also to remind myself that I'm supposed to do the same thing.
That's right.
So we're at the 11 o'clock service yesterday, and at the Cape campus, and there's all these teenagers sitting in the front. And as we're finishing up that video clip, it hit me that I'm going to be Maxie, God willing, for someone in that group.
Yeah.
And that's a huge responsibility, but it's also a joy-filled one too. That one day my leadership won't be needed, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as I'm preparing others to take their role in building the kingdom.
Yeah.
And
This is a call for all disciples of Jesus. It's not just a pastor's thing. We're all called to seek out mentors, sponsors. Those are a little bit farther ahead of us, teachers, those people that we can look to, spiritual parents, spiritual guides, all those people that can help us with the wisdom that we need. And then to just take what we've been freely given and pass it on to somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we've got a leaf blower that's decided to visit us right outside these walls, and we've run out of time together. What's one takeaway for you that you're going to just hold on to that we might also jump on with you and hold on to?
I think we're all going through some kind of transition all the time.
Okay.
And in that reality, to continue to trust in God in new ways, because the realities of what He can do in us, through us, for us are always better than we can imagine.
Yeah. And it's not over when we say yes to Jesus. And
Right.
It's not over when we read through the Bible the first time or we take our first steps of faith. There's always more in the heart of God, and that calls us to more seasons of trust.
Yeah.
Well, it's been good to be together. Thank you for all your hard work on that first draft of our message series and getting us started off well. We'll continue with this in the coming weeks. And so I hope that you'll be a part of the series Handoff at any of the campuses of Grace Church. It's been our joy to be with you here at the cutting room floor and to share with you some of the things that didn't make it into the manuscript. But we pray that God's Spirit and His love and grace makes it into your life today. Know that you are the beloved of God. On you His favor rests, and it's our joy to be your pastors and friends. God bless you today.
See y'all.